Settlers League has been out for a weekend now. GGG dropped a tweet a handful of hours ago at this point about how this has been their biggest league launch ever, and that all makes sense to me. The game is in really good shape, the league mechanic is really good and deep, and hype is building up to Path of Exile 2, which is looking like it's going to be amazing. I've spent most of the weekend figuring out the league mechanic, Kingsmarch, a town you can build. That's right, GGG has made capitalism into a league mechanic, and I'm going to tell you how to get started with making currency and working toward becoming rich through Kingsmarch. But first, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, first things first, I think technically this is more of a mercantilism simulator than a capitalism simulator, since we're using boats and exporting stuff, mainly. Not that it matters for what we're doing, but I know somebody's going to leave a comment, too slow, I'm an even bigger nerd than you are, I beat you to it. Anyhow, the game tutorializes Kingsmarch pretty much immediately upon reaching Lion Eye's Watch, and I have engaged with the league mechanic the entire way through the campaign and throughout every day of mapping. Now, this is a first look based on a weekend of playing with this league. I will absolutely be making more updates about it as the league goes on, and that's because this is a very deep league mechanic. I think it really all starts with gold. You get gold from playing the game. Killing dudes, doing stuff, gives you gold. It's very simple, and you need gold for everything. Now, there are a couple of things you can do as gold sinks. Once you've finished with the town, you can use it to gamble for gear from Faustus, the financier, and this might be a good use once your town is fully upgraded, but during the campaign, during the early phases of upgrading the town, I found it to be pretty ineffective. Most of the gear I've bought from him has been pretty crap. You use gold to interact with the currency trading mechanic as well that Faustus has. If you want to, say, buy divine orbs for chaos orbs, you can do that, and it costs a little bit of gold to be able to do that trading mechanism that is a lot quicker and more efficient than actually using the traditional trading method for exchanging currency. So gold is super important, and I'll talk about more efficient gold farming methods in a moment, but it's mainly used to facilitate the 6 main activities that you do around the town. There is farming, which I'll show that off. That is over here. There's the farm over here. And, you know, that's a crucial component of building any sort of town, obviously. There's shipping, and that's kind of the main way that we make currency. Gold is very essential to this. There's also mining, which is one of the things that you use both for building up the town, but also for shipping around. And then there's smelting, again, kind of a core component of mining. You smelt the ore into bars, and then you can either use that to build up the town or ship it around as well. And then finally, there are Disenchanting, which is kind of a multiplier on all of your shipping stuff. And then mapping, that's sort of a bit of extra stank. I'll get to that in a bit more detail later on. I haven't been super thrilled with the mapping so far. That's the only one that's been maybe a little bit of a dud at this kind of early investment point. Now, all of these mechanics interact with each other, and you need to balance your resources in order to progress the whole town, and you kind of want to build it all up progressively. You get a couple of things earlier on. For example, you get the farming and the shipping before you get the disenchanting and the mapping, so you'll kind of have those progressed ahead of time, but generally speaking, you don't necessarily want to go, all right, all into farming, let everything else wither. Kind of want to build it all up together. Now, as for making gold, as for generating gold quickly, gold makes the world go round. You get it from everything, but the main thing that you get it from is rare and unique mobs, and it is scaled with item quantity, so juicing your maps makes them reward you with more gold. Having more mods on enemies makes them drop more gold, and so on. Now, the fastest method I've found for generating gold is to quickly run maps, especially juiced maps. That is the entire strategy. Not very complicated, right? You can do Alk and Go, you can do League mechanics, but a lot of League mechanic NPCs either don't give gold or aren't that well balanced for dropping gold. To give some examples, Expedition seems to give none. I've killed entire Harbingers in tier 16 maps and gotten 75 gold from them. I've done rituals and gotten 2,000 gold, or 200 gold, I should say. Not great, right? I've spent 5 minutes killing Katarina, and I think I got 1,800 gold. Terrible. By comparison, Anarchy, that's the rogue exile mechanic, is pretty good. I've had Ruckus proc and give me 25 rogue exiles in there, and gotten like 12 or 15,000 gold in a single 5-minute map that had all those dudes in it. So with all of this being said, mechanics that spawn lots of regular map monsters like strongboxes and domination shrines are really the best mechanics for farming gold. Alk and Go can be good for farming gold. Anarchy is pretty good. The main goal is just to kill lots of regular dudes, not lots of league mechanic dudes. I can regularly get 10 to 15,000 gold per map just running a very basic strongbox setup. Not a huge investment, just like strongbox, ambush on the map device, maybe, a couple strongbox scarabs, maybe. That's it. And yeah, 10, 13, 15,000 gold pretty easily in a map. Additionally, maps with multiple bosses are really good for gold, so Racecourse, City Square, Promenade. Maybe the best map is Glacier, since it spawns 5 or 6 unique goatmen before the big boss drops down, so that's like 7 or 8 or 10 or however many bosses worth of gold in a single map. Pretty good. Some of the other like unique maps, for example, as well, I found that I got quite a lot of gold out of some of the synth maps. Those aren't super rewarding, but they did give a lot of gold, so there is something to consider there. Maybe you could do a Maven strategy in synth maps and use that as a way to farm gold and still make a little bit of currency out of the deal too. Now you need this gold in order to do everything in Kingsmarch, and most importantly, you need it to pay the salaries of all your workers. So now let's talk about workers. Each of the 6 jobs around the town involves workers, and you can recruit new workers from Ralph at the town hall. You increase the quality of your workers by upgrading the town hall. That will increase the amount of guys that you're able to recruit at a time. It'll increase the quality of the guys that you can recruit, and it will also increase the cost of recruiting dudes. Now, hiring people from Ralph has an initial cost, as you can see, cost 928 here and wage 373. There is an initial cost and a wage cost per hour. Now, when workers are idling, when they're just hanging out, they don't cost you any wages. They only cost you wages when they're assigned to a job. So I can show that off with some smelting guys here. This dude, Tora Hugh, they cost 83 wages per hour. You can see my wage over here is 69.62, and if I remove them, it goes down. If I reassign them, goes back up. So you can refresh the collection of workers by hitting this button here to reroll recruits. I actually kind of want to buy this guy, but I don't really want to pay for him just yet, so I'm not going to do that, but it will refresh with another table of guys just like this with randomly generated skills, and you can recruit them or not recruit them, and that is kind of one of the gold sinks of maintaining the town. Now, the quality of workers goes up as you improve the town hall, but the cost of the workers goes up significantly. So it is something that you do want to do. It will make everything more profitable, but you do want to be keeping your gold supply up while doing all of this. Each worker has a job that corresponds to one of their skills, and they also have ranks on their skills. So I have a rank 7 miner and a rank 5 miner. The rank 7 miner is significantly better. Having a higher rank means that a worker is obviously better at the job, but the impact here is quite substantial. A rank 2 worker seems to be roughly 50% better than a rank 1 worker, and a rank 3 worker is roughly 50% better than that, and so on. So the difference between a 5 and a 7 would be basically double the amount. Workers that aren't assigned to a job don't cost anything, so if you don't have any ore to mine, you can unassign workers from that job, and if they run out of ore, like, for example, Martin Condon here is assigned to Orichalcum, but I don't have any Orichalcum, so if I unassign him, it doesn't change anything. Look, no different. He's automatically unassigned himself because he mined up all the ore. This is good. This is good quality of life built into the system. Now, the farm will always have work because, you know, there's always food to be grown, but all of the other 5 jobs can change, so you will want to adjust workers accordingly based on how much of a supply you have, how much you're trying to generate, and also how much gold you have. Kind of a lot of different things that you want to balance against each other. Now, something that's interesting about the workers is that they can have multiple skills. For example, Stefan Neville has mining and disenchanting here, but you're only going to use them for one skill. 99% of the time, you're only going to use a worker for the one thing. I'm never going to use Stefan Neville for anything other than mining. I'm not going to go, oh yeah, he's a rank 1 disenchanter, I should shove him into the disenchanting thing. No, I only hired him to mine, that's all he's for. They can't do multiple jobs at once, obviously, so there's not really much of a point to hiring somebody who can do 2 things, who can flex around. You're just going to have them do the one thing. More than anything else, you want to focus on getting the highest skilled workers into each job. This will require shuffling employees in and out as you upgrade your town, and your workers can't upgrade once you've hired them, so don't think about this like Darkest Dungeon or some sort of normal RPG where you hire guys and then build them up over time. Think about it like a capitalist. You want to exploit your workers until you have no more use for them, then throw them away. To that end, you can fire workers once you hire new, higher skilled workers to take their place, and you do that at Ralph the Recruiter. You can fire them here. There's no cost for firing. There's not really much benefit to it unless you're near the worker cap, because an idle worker doesn't cost you anything. But like this guy, I'm gonna deliberately misread his name as Generic Neville. I have no use for Generic Neville. You're fired. Additionally, putting workers into jobs that they're not skilled at is not great. Like if I take out Jacob Bowler here, let's see how much dust I am generating right now. I'm generating, it will be 8 hours until I am done with all this work here. So if I put Jacob Bowler in, it'll be 6 hours and 52 minutes. If I just shove in some random dude, Agate Devias, it is now 7 hours and 57 minutes. So he shaved 10 minutes off compared to somebody who's like rank 4 who shaved off multiple hours. Obviously a pretty significant difference between somebody who is capable of doing a job and not capable of doing it, to the point that somebody who doesn't have skill in a job is effectively worthless. They completely suck at it. There's no point in trying to put them in there at all, especially considering they will still charge you the wage that is based on whatever their actual skill is. I've been hiring and firing all weekend. I'm basically an executive now. Boardroom, capital gains tax, have that on my desk by the end of the day. All of these are sentences that had no meaning to me in the past, but now I feel like they've been with me all my life. Okay, let's start with farming. This is probably the most important of the basic mechanics of the town, and you know, it pretty much is what you would think, right? You have to grow food to feed people. You have to feed people in order to build up a town. You need food to upgrade your other buildings, especially the city hall, and recruiting more workers requires more food. It's pretty simple. I don't really have a ton to say about it. You have up to 6 plots on the farm, and you can assign what kind of food that you grow there. You start out being able to make wheat and corn, then you can add pumpkins and then ore gourds and some sort of blue xanthemum flowers or something. And you just really want to have skilled farmers out there farming up crops. That's pretty much it. You do want to balance out building upgrades to some extent, but the farm is one you want to prioritize getting up first. Next, we have shipping, and this is probably the deepest mechanic. It's certainly the main currency-making mechanic of the league, and if you aren't into crafting gear, maybe you don't care about that at all, this is the reason that you would still want to engage with the league mechanic. It generates currency, it generates gear, it creates new uniques, it creates tattoos, and it creates runes, and lots of other stuff. Like with pretty much everything in the league mechanic, shipping operates on a timer, and I do have a ship that is returned from a harbor with some rewards. I haven't looked at them yet, and you know, I'm gonna kind of look at those now. So the way that shipping works is you load up ships with stuff, you send them out to a port of your choosing, and when they come back, you get a little notification to go grab your rewards. It'll pop up over here on the right-hand side. Now, there is a chance your ships will be captured by pirates. I've only had this happen one time. You can pay to release them, or you can just fight. I choose to fight, naturally, and the fight was pretty easy, to be honest. There was a lot of dodging, but nothing really all that surprising. I dodged the waves, dodged the mechanics, killed the boss, very basic stuff. I was, I don't remember what level I was, like level 90 or something. It was day 2 of the league, 80 something. It was a level 84 fight, so it was pretty slow. It took a while, but I never really felt like I was in any danger throughout the fight. It was just kind of like a bit of a slog. Anyhow, back to shipping. You have your choice of a bunch of different ports. It starts out as just like 1 or 2, and then it builds up to 5. At least that is what I have unlocked right now. And as you can see, some of the ports are very close. Some of them are far away. They even have the distance measured in kilometers. Don't know what that means. I'm American. So longer trips will take longer amounts of human real world time. For example, I sent 2 ships out right before I started recording, and one of them is to Naga Canoe, which is right here. It's like 186, whatever that thing is, away, and it's already almost back, 5 minutes from coming back, whereas I sent another one out to Pondium, which is up here, and it's still got over an hour. So there is a bit of a difference in terms of the amount of time based on the distance, but then there's also a difference in the reward based on the distance. Longer trips, more reward. Now, all of the 5 ports also will have bounties, as you can see here. There are these sort of bounties here where they'll ask for some kind of stuff. Maybe in Calgary they're celebrating Halloween early and they just want hundreds and thousands of pumpkins. One of these ports around here wanted thousands of pumpkins for me. 31,000 pumpkins. Okay, man, sure. So if you send these guys more pumpkins, you will get a better reward. And you can see that indicated in green text on the right side of the tooltip there, 40% more value by sending them up to 31,000 pumpkins. Once you hit the cap on everything, you will get a special reward back. It seems to be a unique, so if I send Naga Canoe another 500 pumpkins, I'll get some sort of fancy reward. Now, in terms of what you can ship, you can send literally everything that you make in the town. And I will check this ship's rewards now and see what I got. I got a gore drill, woo, and then a handful of random crap currency and a couple of chaos orbs. Cool, not anything super fancy, but that's fine. Now I can kind of show off sending out a ship, and I'm gonna send out the Catagan's Ire to, I think I'm gonna send it out to Kalgur. So you start by picking the dock you want to go to, the port you want to go to, and then you click this button here to prepare the shipment. You also want to prepare your crew. You socket in the highest ranked, sailors that you have, and then there you go, pretty much that. So what they want is orichalcum and vericium. Now you can send them ore, but ore is not nearly as valuable as bars. Bars are, I think, 5 times as valuable as ore, and I've already burned up most of my ore while I was sleeping. So I'm gonna grab some vericium bars and some orichalcum bars, and I'm gonna shove those into my shipment here. And, I'm not gonna burn through all of them because I do want to be able to upgrade some buildings. But as you can see, my shipment value is like 112. Now here's where dust comes in. Dust is what you get through disenchanting, and as you can see, I'm just gonna add a little bit of dust, and look at the shipment value, 112 right now. Boop, 340, immediate massive multiplier just by adding a little bit of dust. Now this has some diminishing returns. Adding just like 9,000 dust gives me a 340,000 shipment value, whereas if I go all the way up to like 90,000 dust, 10 times more dust, it only goes up to like 381. So I think generally speaking, you kind of want to be a little bit conservative with your dust. You just want to make sure you add some. It's very effective initially with very strong diminishing returns. So you always want to send some dust along with whatever you're shipping, but look at the shipment value and then adjust accordingly. You don't want to go buck wild either. But you can see also as I change this out, the value goes up, the risk value goes up. Now the risk is this red bar here, and as you can see, it says 37% chance this shipment will encounter unforeseen outcomes during the voyage. The greater the risk, the higher the chance of more severe outcomes. Now this risk can come in a lot of different forms. It can be pirates capturing your guys. It can be, I've heard of like the sailors eating all the food on a ship. I've had sailors that have gotten to the far port and then just said, I'm going to leave and start a new life here. So I have to recruit a sailor to replace them. So there's a lot of different things that can happen here. But you kind of want to balance this out. Am I willing to gamble this 37% chance? Maybe I back some of these numbers down a little bit and bring that down into the like 20% range. But ultimately, I do still want to get like over 200k shipment value. That's a pretty good odds of having a good return from this trip. So I'm willing to send that out, and we are sending that out to Kalgur as it says here, and it says the time here, 3 hours and 52 minutes. It'll cost 894 gold per hour to send your sailors out, and this is another thing. The sailors do not cost anything if they're, what's the term for being on shore? Well, anyways, if they're not out sailing the boats, if they're on shore leave, I guess, they don't cost you anything. So you don't have to unsocket them from the boats as soon as they get back in order to not cost money. They don't cost money as soon as they finish their shipment. All right, let's hit set sail. And now I just have to wait 3 hours and 52 minutes for them to come back. Now, one other note here that I want to make is that there are 2 types of ports, at least of what I've unlocked so far. Naga Canoe and Te Anui are Karui ports, obviously, as you can kind of guess from their names. And then Ribbonfell, Pondium, and Kalgur are all Kalguran ports. And so Kalguran ports will send back runes. You use those for rune crafting, which we'll talk about in a bit. And Karui ports have a chance to send back tattoos. So if you want to get tattoos, you really want to be interacting with the Karui ports. Now, there's also some returns that can be based on what kind of stuff you send out. Sending out food will bring back currency. Sending out different ore and bar types can return different types of gear. I think you can get like armor from one type of bar, and cannot remember what they all are. I think Crimson Iron will give armor, Bismuth will give, orichalcum will give weapons, and then jewelry maybe comes from petrified amber. I'm not sure about bismuth and vericium. I've heard this stuff, read it on Reddit. Don't know, haven't experimented fully with this. Definitely think there's some interesting stuff to discover here. Probably vericium would give like uniques, that would be my guess. but don't entirely know. Obviously, there's a lot of complexity here, and I think that's pretty cool, and I'm going to take the returns from this shipment. Oh my god, yes, a divine orb. Perfect, love to see that. That's exactly what we're hoping for. I sent a bunch of food on this boat run to Naga Canoe, and I got back a divine orb. Pretty sick, perfect. Couldn't have scripted that better. All right, I am going to do, I think, the same thing. Going to send another Naga Canoe shipment out with wheat and corn in it. And just to kind of demonstrate, wheat, let's go wheat. And corn, that's right. Middle America, wheat and corn. And then we slap on a little bit of dust to juice that up a bit. And then they would also like some orichalcum. So I got some orichalcum bars here, shove those in as well. Get that shipment value up. And maybe I'll throw in a little bit of, what else are they looking for? Really just wheat and corn. All right, I'll throw in a little bit more food just to help them out. And as we can see, we got a 1% chance for the shipment to go bad. I'm willing to roll the dice on that. Set sail. See you in 35 minutes. Hopefully you bring back more divines. All right, next up is mining, and mining is over here. The mining camp is over here. It is a mechanic that directly involves you playing the game, unlike some of this other stuff where it's more of a sort of a management system in town. This is something that you actually have to do maps in order to get, or the campaign. You can also interact with some mining as well, because as you run maps or do the campaign, you'll encounter up to 5 different types of ore. Now, each node of ore has a different little event required to mark the site, and I think it's all pretty well tutorialized. To be honest, I don't think I really need to tell you how all of it works, but I will just say that like Crimson Iron Ore, you click it and it spawns some pods around, you kill the pods, and now you've marked the ore. Orichalcum ore is special for 2 reasons. One, I have looked it up and it is pronounced orichalcum, even though it's spelled orichalcum. It's a Latin word, and the Romans didn't have the technology for language to make C function as both a K and a S sound. It was K the whole way, so orichalcum it is. Second, and more importantly, orichalcum grants you a big damage proc bonus for, I think, around 30 seconds, maybe it's 45, after you finish killing the demons that are near it. It really clears out mobs super fast, so I do like orichalcum a lot just for the kind of benefit that it provides. Bismuth ore stands out to me as being pretty noteworthy as well for being the one that doesn't require you to actually do anything except just click it. You walk up, click the bismuth, and then now bismuth will cause tornadoes to spawn throughout the rest of the map and grant enemies extra elemental damage. So it's actually quite dangerous. I've been killed by those tornadoes multiple times while I was doing inventory management stuff and just not paying attention generally. So you can save bismuth until the end of the map and backtrack and hit it and then leave if you want to play it safe. Just don't forget it. Petrified Amber Ore is very basic. It just gives you like a very, very small tower defense. It's not really even blight level. It's more just like, here's some guys, they're coming at the tree, kill them, that's it. And then finally, Verisium is the rarest of the ore types. It has the old channel up to increase the danger and reward mechanic from Crucible League. The channel is still quite slow. I hated this mechanic in Crucible League. Crucible League is one of my least favorite league mechanics of all time, and I still don't love this league mechanic now, but it isn't nearly as dangerous as Crucible was. I've been charging these up to 85, 90, even 100%, but it can definitely be rough if you go all the way up to 100. Now there is another mechanic, a hidden mechanic, and that is the secret boss, the Black Knight. Sometimes when you come across a Verisium ore, it will instead spawn as a crater on the ground. The one that I found was weirdly rendered sort of underneath and in between an expedition plot and the ground, so it was kind of hard to see. But anyhow, once you click that portal, you will jump into a little encounter arena and fight the boss. This is a one-shot boss fight. If you win, you get a bunch of ore nodes around the arena that you're able to click and just get tons of Verisium ore without any sort of more fighting. But if you lose, you lose. That's it, you're locked out. He wasn't really a particularly challenging boss fight for a tier 16 map. Most of the mechanics were either dodge the circles before before a rock falls from the ceiling, or dodge the lines before he hits you with a knife. But he did have one mechanic that was a little bit more interesting. He spawned 3 pillars from the ground and then started channeling a beam into me. If I stood behind the pillars, it would break line of sight. So kind of just the goddess mechanic, but you know, basically TLDR, don't get hit by the falling rocks, dodge the daggers on line of sight the beam, and he is pretty easy. The biggest thing with mining is just maintaining a steady supply of ore for the boys, and that means you need to be in maps interacting with ore nodes regularly. As you can see, I've burned through all of my ore, so I need to get back into maps, but first, this video. This highly incentivizes mapping quickly. Alkengo is once again a really good strategy here. Any sort of league mechanics that slow you down are suboptimal for getting ore and for getting gold. You really want to be zoomy, zoomy, zoomy. Now, you can find multiple ore nodes in a single map, so zoom through your maps, but definitely do explore them fully. You never know what's around the next corner. And one final tip on ore is once you have marked the ore for your boys to mine, it will disappear from your minimap, but until then, that ore node will be visible on the minimap. So that's sort of the indicator for some of the ones, particularly for Orichalcum, which is it spawns beyond demons, and so those guys can really run around a lot, and sometimes you can't necessarily tell, have I actually finished this node or not? If it's still on the minimap, you haven't. If it's disappeared from the minimap, you're good. Move on. All right, the next mechanic is smelting, and I'm going to make my way over to the forge. Now, as any WoW player knows, smelting is what you do with ore. It turns it into bars, and then you use it for stuff. Craft an Arcanite Reaper. In Path of Exile, you smite ore into bars to construct higher level building upgrades or to trade the bars with other ports. Again, as I said before with the shipping section, the bars are worth about 5 times as much as the ore. Other than that, there's really not a lot more to say about smelting, but the building is operated by Danig, so be sure to stop and say, "Hi Danig," as you are running by. And now we can talk about runeforging, runesmithing, because that is the real appeal of the smelting forge. You're able to build this runesmithing table that then allows you to enchant weapons with unique weapon affixes, unique item affixes. So there is a lot of depth to this system. There's definitely an entire video of its own, probably an entire series about runesmithing enchantments. But just to give some possible examples of enchantments here, I will run through this here. There's some pretty cool stuff in here. Culling Strike. You can just put Culling Strike on a weapon, period. The weapon now has Culling Strike with all of your skills. That's pretty sick. There is some other stuff. I have just a very basic increased physical damage enchant on my weapon, which is definitely helping out. But there's a lot of other stuff here. Chance to poison and bleed on hit. Fizz damage leached his life. Fizz damage leached his mana. That's really nice. Level 1 Envy, that's pretty interesting. Chance to freeze, a couple of other things in here. One that I really wanted to emphasize, obviously, Fizz converted to elemental damage. Enemies killed by your hits are destroyed. So the Axe Mastery, that one's really good. And then this is something I really wanted to emphasize. +1 to level of all blank spell, school, skill gems. This is really, really interesting for a lot of caster builds. So lots and lots of good stuff in here. Definitely haven't unlocked everything. Impale on spell hit, very, very cool possibilities. So there you go. Runeforging, runesmithing, it's very strong, it's very expensive, it's really good. It requires runes, and those mostly come from the league mechanic boss fights and from shipping. Shipping is really the main source of runes, and you just want to be shipping with Kalguran ports in order to get those runes. The next mechanic is Disenchanting, and it is a building operated by Rog. He has a big inventory window, and I think it's a default keybind, but maybe it's a PoE overlay keybind. If you control click him, it'll just open up this window directly, and you just shove items in here and he will disenchant them over time. As you can see down at the bottom, it says time to disenchant all items, 6.5 hours. Now you can't put uniques in, at least I can't yet, but you can put rares in, you can put corrupted and mirrored items in, and the amount of dust that you get from this is based on the quality of the item, like the level of mod tiers, the bases, and so on. So an item that, for example, has really good stats on it, but is actually trash, like these are all bad example boots here. Okay, here we go. A pair of boots that has some high level stats on it, but either has a really bad move speed roll or no move speed roll, can be worth a lot of dust. But it wouldn't be worth anything to anybody in the game. It wouldn't be worth anything at a vendor. So you can take it here and just kind of shove it in here and shard it up. This is what I do with a lot of the rare gear that comes back from Tujin that's worthless. I just immediately walk over, shove it into Rog's disenchanting table, and I try to always keep the disenchanting pool full. You need that dust to maximize the value of your shipping. Now, you can't disenchant gems and jewels and not uniques. Like I said, magic and rare items only. I think that unique disenchanting is probably just an upgrade I haven't unlocked yet. Ultimately, I am way over the amount of dust that I need, since you really don't need a lot of dust when you're shipping out. The diminishing returns on it are quite substantial. You just need to send like a couple thousand dust out with every shipment, and I have hundreds of thousands of dust. So I do feel that I'm a little bit over on Dust, but you know, it's fine. Like it's a pretty easy set and forget mechanic. You throw a bunch of rares into ROG's tab, you come back and check it every 5, 6, 10 hours and you're good. Now, on that note, let's move over to talking about the Recombinator. The Recombinator is a building or a little table that you can build, much like the Runeforge, the runesmithing situation. You can use the Recombinator. It consumes both dust and gold to smash 2 items together, and they need to be items of the same type. So, for example, 2 belts you can smash together, and, you know, 2 chests you can smash together, and it will kind of slam them together. It'll combine some of the mods, it'll combine the base types, and maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be bad. The more you upgrade the Runeforge, or the Recombinator rather, the more you upgrade the Recombinator, the more the chance of it preserving good mods, rarer mods, increasing value, that all will go up. At this point, I'm not really able to do much with it yet. I haven't put a lot of investment into it. Definitely something I'm going to be playing around with more as sort of an in-game optimization thing. And again, like the Runeforge, there's a ton of depth here. It's a mechanic that deserves an entire series of videos on its own. But bottom line, you can slam items together, and good luck with that. All right, and now we're on to the final job, mapping. Mapping allows you to shove maps into a map device. You can have, I think this is a, what is this, 12 slot map device? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 12 slots. You can shove up to 12 maps into the map device and assign NPCs to run those maps. They will complete the maps with varying degrees of success and give you items back that would naturally come from a map of that tier and rarity. So let's see what I got from, what is this map I sent them out to run? A dig map. They brought back 2 turbulent catalysts and a volatile power card. Cool. All right, I sent them out to run a defiled cathedral, and let's see what they got. 300 rogue markers and a single transmute orb. So this is a really good idea. I really like this idea, and I think at full upgrade, full maximum value, it could be really good. The problem I've had with it so far is that the runners are really bad at pathofexile. I am not at max level here on the map device or on my runners, like not even close. So maybe that's the issue. Maybe it's, you know, there's definitely a ton of room for improvement, but so far my map runners are able to complete yellow tier maps, and they very regularly don't. As we can see here, the expected map completion on this tier 6 map that I have my runners assigned to is 12 to 36%. The expected time is 20 minutes, 30% chance for an Atlas runner to be permanently killed in the map. I have queued them up for just like tier 2 magic maps and had them die in those. I would say they have a pretty high chance to die based on the difficulty of the maps, and my runners have really been exceeding the odds when it comes to dying. So, you know, you can queue up to 12 maps at once. If one of the runners dies, then they will stop and wait for you to come and send them back in. And while the runners are not actively running, they will not cost anything. Like, they are paused right now. 1383 is the current wage from them. My current wage is 7856. If I say, okay, open the map, the wage just went up. As you can see, it went up by that 1383 gold per hour. Now, an annoying thing, a thing I would like for them to change is if I wanted to shove somebody in, I can't until they finish the map. There is this little button here. You can say suspend mapping, and once they finish that map, they will stop and wait for you to come slot somebody in or change out the maps or whatever. But you can't shove somebody into the map while they're already in it, which I guess makes sense. You wouldn't want to be able to start the map and then shuffle people in and out. But I would like to be able to sort of like queue up that, okay, after they finish the next map, they'll go ahead and jump in instead of having to wait and come back and shuffle it in then. But, you know, it is what it is. I think the biggest issue I have with this mechanic so far is just the rate at which my dudes are dying, and then having to stop and come back to town and recruit another guy to replace them, and then socket them in, and then ship them out. It's all gotten to be a little bit intensive for what is ultimately rewarding me with like 300 rogue markers. It hasn't been very profitable yet. Now, if they are successful, they will give you a little notification in the bottom right corner here, just like with a ship returning from port. They will let you know they've succeeded. You can come pick up the rewards from the run at the map device. And by my understanding, at high levels, the mappers are able to run even Guardian maps and bring back items from Guardian maps. So you could set them up to run all of your Guardian of the Chimera maps and get Chimera fragments without ever having to waste 5 minutes of intermissions worth of your life doing a Guardian of the Chimera. but at least for now, what these guys do mostly is rip it up in white and yellow maps and get sent to Void League, so I'm not totally impressed by them so far. I'm still doing it, obviously, I'm still doing the whole town, I'm investing in them, but they have basically just been a waste of time to this point, and I would say if I were to give any advice about these guys, maybe emphasize more building up the farm and the shipyard before moving on to mapping and really investing heavy in it. So what is important with the town? I would say in order, shipping, farming, mining, and smelting. In that order is really the important stuff. I guess gold farming is number one, and building up the town center so that you can have higher level guys is like number one. But obviously all of these kind of interconnect with each other. You want to make sure you keep enough gold in the bank so that people don't stop working, and just keep playing the game and farming more ore for your miners to mine, your smelters to smelt, and your sailors to ship. Overall, this is a really good league mechanic. There is a ton of depth. I look forward to putting out a ton more guides about it, putting a ton more time into thinking about it, and really like diving deeper into the specific mechanics. So in conclusion, I really like this league. I think it's very good. There is a ton of complexity and depth here and lots more to learn and uncover about the various mechanics, and I look forward to doing more of that over the coming days and weeks. All right, I think that pretty much covers it. Thanks for watching. Bye.